What's going on YouTube? Or Storm here, coming at you guys in another video. I'm going to have a little bit of updates, so if you want to skip those, there's a button down in the description to get to the main topic you're here for, which is the Pendulum and Sky Striker updates. But today, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on the channel. And I know I haven't been uploading for like several months again, but I decided to come back for a little bit because I actually had kind of some new video ideas and kind of the passion to start making video projects again, kind of reignited again. So we're back on the bandwagon for doing video content. But anyways, so projects that are on the way, scalping, a video on talking about scalping and how it affects trading card games, because if you guys haven't heard, Target had some pretty serious issues with trading cards thanks to the Logan Paul maniacs, the maniacs who went out and are wiping, literally, people pulled, at a Target, someone pulled a gun on someone over Pokemon cards, and eventually, unfortunately, I really think these morons are going to make their way over to the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and that's I'm not looking forward to it. But anyways, that's the main reason that I kind of spurred on talking about the topic, because it's something that I'm tracking down the PS5 I bought a few months ago was such a pain in the ass. Like, I spent months on Twitter before I finally got my hands on mine. And there's people who've been doing it since last November. Like, scalping is a really big issue, not just for video games, obviously, but in our trading card community. We see it all the time with buyouts and things like that. And it's a topic I'm kind of passionate about. So the script is going to need a few minor edits. That should be up sometime next week. The good news is I'm on vacation next week, so I'll have a lot more time to edit videos, and I will probably be getting back on the streaming bandwagon. I'm planning on hopping probably on Dueling Book to test out probably a few decks I'm working on, Untitled Chapter and Shout All Dinos, and probably testing Pendulums and Sky Striker and some of the stuff I'm going to talk about in this video. So yeah, anyways, get to the topic y'all are here for, which is Pendulum and Sky Striker. So obviously both of these decks got some cards back off the ban list, as you guys probably already know. Pendulum Magician's got one more copy of Double Iris. I really wish it would have been a third one, but that'll probably happen next list. And we got one copy of Joker. And then Sky Striker's obviously got a single copy of Engage back, which is a pretty cool. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about what these changes mean for these decks and what maybe changes you might want to add to your decks to incorporate these cards back from the ban list. So you guys know Pendulum Magicians are kind of my baby, so we'll start with that. For Pendulum Magicians, the biggest thing is now Pendulum Sorcerer is actually viable to play. If you guys don't know what Pendulum Sorcerer does, basically, it should be on screen right now. You Pendulum Summon it, pops up to 2 cards, including itself, to search a Perform Pal from your deck. So this gives not only it's because it's got Pendulum in the name, it's searchable via Duelist Alliance. But the problem with playing it in previous builds of Pendulum Magicians is most of the targets suck. Like, there's like Odd Eyes Unicorn and a few other things you could play, but they're terrible. You don't want to play them. So now the question is, how many Pendulum Sorcerer would you add to your Pendulum deck? I think we're beyond the point of playing 3, because Joker's honestly the only target you're going to be playing, because you're not playing Sky Iris or any of these other Odd Eyes cards in your deck anymore. And honestly, I only think you're going to need 1, because Joker's also accessible via Time Star Magician, the rank 4. So I honestly think that's the main change that's going to be added. The second copy of Iris, the only really big change that adds is a little bit more consistency, and technically you could play Luster Pendulum to pop it and search another one, but Luster Pendulum just isn't a good card to play in a post-Electromite world, because Magicians really need other Magician stuff in the zone. Like, you don't want anything else there. So if you're playing, like, mostly pure Pendulum Magicians, Luster's going to get stuck there, and you're not going to be able to get rid of it. If Electromite were around, then it'd be a little bit different, but I don't think it's worth playing Luster Pendulum just to pop Double Iris, even though we have 2 now, when Pendulum Sorcerer is just a better card, and it's relatively searchable, and it doesn't have restrictions on what you can exceed summon with it. So, my personal opinion, it doesn't change a lot. A lot of the combos are still pretty much the same. You're going to probably do Artifact Dagda with 2 rank 4s, and that's pretty much what you're going to do with the deck now. That's not really a lot's going to change in that regard. The Dagda combo is still there. You can still pretty efficiently make Appaloosa before you hit your 5th summon. But the main issue is always going to be going second. So the problem with Pendulum Magicians in their current state is they need so many cards to do what they do. You can't really fit in a lot of non-combo pieces such as hand traps. So those are going to have to be slid over to your side deck, and you're going to have to build for going first. That's just unfortunately how Pendulum is nowadays. Without, you know, some of the other pieces, you're going to need to just play for going. It's like playing DDDs, you know, back in the day. You build your entire deck around going first, and then side for going second. That's kind of just how you have to play the deck. As far as Sky Strikers, the extra copy of Engage actually doesn't seem like, obviously it's a big deal because of how strong Engage is. But only having the one copy, it does have some issues because there are DD Crow is a card that can get out of the graveyard, and there are enough interruptions to stop you from recycling it out of the grave with Kagari, that I think if you're going to play Sky Strikers, if you definitely want that one main deck called by the grave, it is at 1. But you would probably want it at 3 in this case. But I also think that you're gonna want maybe Eagle Booster is typically a 1 of. But there's something to be said for possibly bumping it to 2, because that gives you 3 ways to make sure your Kagari doesn't get hand trapped, and that gives you about a 1. It means you'll have one of those cards in 1 out of about 3 hands. So, because you don't want to overload your deck with, you know, you don't want to play too many Eagle Boosters and overload your deck with just like, because it's not a card you necessarily want to see all the time. But I do think with Called by the Grave at 1, it was always a card I played at 3 back in the day with Sky Striker, simply for that reason, because I want to make sure my Kagari goes off. Eagle Booster kind of does the same thing, so I think if you're building Sky Striker right now, one of the big things you probably want to change with your deck is, if you're not, you might want to play an extra copy of Eagle Booster, and if you weren't already playing Foolish Burial Goods for some reason, it's pretty much a generic search card for the deck because Kagari is a card, so I personally think that if you're going to be playing Sky Strikers, you need to be playing that in some form or fashion. But other than that, having Engage really does help, and there are going to be times where you're going to run into an opponent who just resolves it multiple times in a turn, but it's not like there's 3 of them where you're going to be drawing, like, they're going to be drawing like 3 or 4 cards in a turn. But the issue with Sky Strikers, though, even with the extra copy of Engage, is that Eldritch is still running around. I know it's not the top tier deck or whatever, but it has a really good matchup against Sky Striker because the deck, Sky Striker can anchor things and afterburners them to get rid of them, but the constant recurrence of Golden Lord is something the deck is really going to struggle with. Sky Strikers have always struggled with big monsters, but the fact Hunkero is a card, the fact that, you know, Golden Lord just can keep coming back is just something that's going to give the deck a lot of trouble. And even with the 1 Engage, it's still at 1. Like, you're not going to see, you're going to see it, if you're playing a 40 card deck, you're going to see it 1 in, you know, 12% of your hands. So more often than not, you're going to have to search it with Shizuku, send it with Foolish Burial Goods, and recycle it with Kagari, etc. That's what you're going to have to do. So I think Sky Striker is kind of like Burning Abyss, where it has these players who are really, really good with the deck, but it's not going to have an easy time against some of the other meta decks that are running around. But I do think the extra copies of Engage does help, and if you are building them for the new format, maybe want to bump your Eagle, definitely put Call by the Grave in your deck and bump your Eagle Booster from 1 up to 2. So anyway, guys, that about comes to the end of the video today. Let me know what you guys think. How are you updating your Pendulum Magician and your Sky Striker decks for the new format? Let me know down in the comment section down below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. Swarstorm, signing out.